Are you ready to get out of that one person grind? This is the Scale You podcast, your weekly guide to growing your business like crazy. Every single week, we have amazing entrepreneurs coming in talking about their business, how they got started, AI, automation, systems, marketing, and everything else in between. At Scale You, we're here to take you from solopreneur to scaling yourself as an actual business owner. So ditch the grind and let's scale you. For our guest today, I'm super excited for you guys to meet my friend Cris. For the last 7 years, Cris has helped scale businesses to 7 to 8 figures using online sales funnels and is the founder of Primoff, Prime Media Hub, Civi, and Expanding Horizons. He is a JCI senator, a past president, as well as an active member in social civic organizations like the Philippine Chamber of Commerce Iloilo, using his tenure in social entrepreneurship and design thinking to create sustainable movements in tech and community work. So guys, please help me welcome my friend and our guest today, Cris. Hey Cris!
Hey, Leanne, it's great to be here.
Super excited to have you here and super excited to have you. I think you are guest, 11, which is like
Ooh.
a good solid number. 11 or 12, I think it's just a good solid number for it. So to start off with, because I know you a lot, and we were just talking about it as well. But for the people who are kind of getting to know you or watching this or listening, walk us through the 3 or 5 major highlights of your life that got you here.
Yeah, it's interesting. So for me, maybe the very first highlight for me is I actually basically grew up in a private school because my mother was working as a teacher's aide. So I got the privilege of being in a very safe, very nurturing environment. And then suddenly, um, I got pushed into what do you call this, into public schools, or long story short, not hating on public schools, but public schools in the Philippines are just so chaotic. And at the time, I don't know if you I don't know if it's the same in Tacloban, in Sigor,
Mm-hmm.
Manila, or anywhere else, but basically, there was a time where even as young as elementary school students, there were already gangs forming, right?
Wow.
So
Mm-hmm.
so it was a whole fun experience. I spent 6 years, um, and it has helped shape also the way I've seen and dealt with. I've seen how the rich enjoy their lives. I've seen how
Both
you know,
sides, yeah.
poor people- yeah. So it's fun. The
Mm-hmm.
second probably highlight in my life is that my dad left the country for 20 years basically to become an
Damn.
OFW. Right. So and one of the reasons why is that because of my experience with public school, and it was crazy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like almost getting beaten up, and all of that stuff. Nepotism, teachers bribing you to get stuff, um,
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. I asked my dad if I could go back to private school. So that's one of the reasons why he left. He left for that country. Um, and funnily enough, that year, maybe it was around my first year. Sorry, it was my second year in high school. I was 14. I was introduced um, by a guy. A random guy in a mall approached me,
Hmm.
and I was a student. Imagine this: we were 3 students, and somehow this guy thought it was a good idea to approach these kids and ask them to join a networking company.
Okay, that's usually the most interesting story start out the way. I'm like, someone randomly approached me as a student in the mall.
Yeah, in a
Tell me
mall.
more then.
And then he said, "Hey, guys, I have something to show you. It's gonna be interesting, but we have to go up the mall." And then my
Mm.
friend and I like were staring at each other. But as the chaotic guy in the room, why not? So we followed this guy, um, left the mall, went up into this tiny alley, up into
Mhm.
the office. So inside the office, there were a lot of people presenting. But I was like, okay, fuck, this is a scam. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. Bang, this is
Okay.
so dang, this is a scam. I'm gonna record this entire conversation and see what's gonna happen.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Basically, long story short, he showed us the MLM program, and that was basically my doorway into entrepreneurship. Um,
Mm.
I did not invest. I basically used his product, sold it, and then bought my own account. And then a few years later, he invited me into another MLM company. Same guy.
Wow.
invited me to an MLM, another MLM company. I was first year in college.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and basically, that's where things got crazy, So uh, I actually thought at 16, I closed my first investor at 16. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually thought I was going to be a millionaire before I would reach 20.
As a trajectory is,
Ironically,
yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And quite literally, I probably have like 300 people under me during that time, um,
Mm-hmm.
under that organization. Um,
Wow.
but the fate decided otherwise. The
Mm-hmm.
same company decided to do a Ponzi scheme, and one of the guys I trusted, one of my mentors, I asked this guy, "Hey, dude, um, isn't this a Ponzi scheme?"
Mm-hmm.
He just looked me straight in the eye and said, "No, this is not." And I was like, "Okay, good enough. Hey guys, you want to join the scam? Invest 1.5, you get 20,000 pesos."
There you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and long story short, it was a bust. I got in debt. I had to loan from my cousin to pay for that experience.
Yeah.
Um, and while I was doing all of that, I got into this nonprofit. It's called JCI. How many of
Mm-hmm.
you here have heard of JCI, Junior Chamber International? So there are multiple chapters all over the Philippines. And JCI basically taught me a concept called social entrepreneurship. So that
Mm-hmm.
means using creative design thinking, we are able to create and solve problems with minimal resources, um, connections, and all of that, right? So it was a mix. So network marketing or MLM gave me the confidence,
Mm-hmm.
while JCI gave me the framework to basically create social movements without capital. And mind you, we organize events like you'd probably need around 800,000 pesos or 500,000 pesos up to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
JCI, even without funding, without money, we were able to create those events. Um, with that said, it was also JCI that was able to, what's the word I'm looking for, bring me out of that, right? Bring me out of
Mm-hmm.
the limbo that is the scam. Hold on. For some reason I'm sweating. So it was actually JCI that brought me out of the limbo that is the scam. So after the whole experience with MLM, um, I had this mindset where I felt like I didn't deserve money because of the stuff that I did, right? Even though I was blatantly transparent with people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but maybe at around 20, 21 years old, I was the only one qualified to become president of the organization
Mm-hmm.
at the time, because all of our, not because of skills, right? Because I was the only one left. So all
Mm-hmm.
of the other members were either burnt out. There's something called donor fatigue or volunteer fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they needed a break. So no one was left to fend for the organization, to support the communities that we're part of. And that forced me to think of other ways to scale these opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that led me to funnels, right? So luckily, by some divine intervention, Russell Brunson came in the form of a book
Mm-hmm.
and basically arrived and showed me the way. And the way was funnels. And then I was trained by through an internship program through Slash Ignite, where they were helping other people basically earn transition into online careers. But then there was a loophole. Um, the loophole was that by transitioning into an online career, technically speaking, all of these VAs are just employed. Right? Nothing wrong with that,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
that's not the kind of life that I want. Right? So I decided that, you know what, from day one, I'm gonna be an agency. So that's where I
Mm-hmm.
started my agency. And long story short, a year after
Yeah.
that, first million. Um, but in transition to the final highlights that I'm going to share, I started that company with the intention to help, right?
Mhm.
So I wanted to help people. I wanted to elevate the Philippines, create opportunities. Um, but the people that I basically started with, it was all a series of people who I started with, stealing clients, stealing from the company, um,
Mhm.
and all that. Basically, normal business problems, right?
Mhm.
Which now made me think, okay, you know what? Maybe employing 1,000 people, earning 100,000 per month, is a great dream, but maybe not for me, right?
Mhm.
Maybe I can help 1,000 people earn 100K per month without employing them. So,
True. Yeah.
hence creating this whole new startup that we partner with, by the way, with you, with your course.
Mhm.
Sorry, plug ko na lang. We're starting your first cohort around July, Work Anywhere course or Work Anywhere Masterclass.
Mhm.
Um, and we have a lot of audiences from there, single moms, ex-cons, people deprived of liberties, and who knows what sort of opportunity we can give to these people, right?
Mhm.
So very interesting stuff. That's pretty much it.
Got it. And I love that you dive into a lot of things that I do have a lot of questions on. First of all, I think we had the same trajectory where also at 17, I got recruited for a minimum. I forgot that part of my life, to be honest, mostly because that was literally pre Yolanda. So I think I was only in
Oh,
it for like 2 months, and then Yolanda happened. And then, of course, like my life changed drastically afterwards. Like I didn't do it anymore. But I remember that of like, now that as you were telling me that story, I was like, oh yeah, that is technically where I learned my first sales skills, like
yeah.
doing that, just because I was curious on how it's done. Um, so I like the parallel there. And then like you talked also about a lot about essentially in my head, like it popped up the word of like the dark side of business, the dark side of like
Mm.
figuring out what is the dream and what is the reality, and where it all comes, kind of the bridging in between. And of course talking about the cohort, I think um this episode is launching the week that it's actually, I think I did it on purpose a little bit of like, this is launching when the first masterclass actually is launched, so then people will be able to see this
Oh,
and watch the interview at the same time, which is cool. But essentially like getting to that full circle moment of, we both also have had the parallels of both of our dads working overseas so we can be in private schools and being taken care of basically our whole life, which is, we love our dads. It's almost also
yeah.
Father's Day. And the
Oh, Father's Day. Ah.
it's in 16th, so pretty soon. And also the parallels of starting very young. I think you started your about what age
14.
were you when you started your business?
For well, officially starting my business maybe around 21, but starting business exactly around 14. Yeah.
I got my first ever gig when I was 15. 2XU was started when I was 22, 23. So very
Yeah,
parallel.
very, very parallel. Yeah.
And yeah, and as we talked about as well, like the struggles that we went through of rough business partners or people sadly stealing clients or just that. So walk me through that then of like, what would you say were kind of the struggles to get to where you are? Like you talked about it briefly and covered it, but like as an entrepreneur, like what would you say either has been the biggest lesson or has been kind of the repeating pattern that you've seen that you kind of also want to get out of?
Ha! The repeating pattern. All right, let's start there. Actually,
It
it's
happens.
that's
I know mine. So
yours. Um, Mine comes in the form of rescuing. All right, so
mm,
long story short, I actually like the rebels. For me, that's kind of like for me that's like my brand, right? The rebels,
mhm,
the misfits, the people who are not recognized because were not given the opportunity or the people who understood them, right? So I was
mhm,
very lucky. I had mentors very early on that gave me the insight and opportunity to grow.
mhm,
So in the whole span of my business, I was trying to be that mentor, be the guy that gives opportunities to these people.
yeah,
And then I learned the hard way that not everyone actually deserves the opportunity. Um, For example, I have paid someone. Well, not really paid, but I have brought someone, not just someone, a couple of people,
Mm-hmm.
in a course that cost like 500,000 pesos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Business Mastery by Tony Robbins. Um, Brought them there because I wanted them to be my equal, right? I want to bring
Yeah.
people up. I don't want to be the boss. I want to be a leader, right? So that means I have to build other leaders with me.
Mm-hmm.
But majority of the people that I've brought into those programs were, for well, on a personal level, a disappointment for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So either I find out too late that they're not the right fit, or I find out too late that they were just pretending to enjoy the
To be
programs.
the fit, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to be the fit. They weren't as honest as I'd like to be. But luckily for me, despite that, there were people who did fit. Um, and they are the reason why I'm still in business, because I actually let go of my company. Maybe when we met, right, I was just jamming, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even care what was gonna happen, you know. Um, so spent basically a year not really scaling, not really doing the business, just fixing, patching up leaks and all of that, but not really scaling or repairing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the people who actually fit that kept the boat afloat. Long
Yeah.
enough for me to see, oh hey, we're not dead yet.
We're still here. Mm-hmm.
We're still here. It's because of you. Okay, you believe in the vision. I believe in the vision now. Right? Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Jack Sparrow moment.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you called it the Jack Sparrow moment. I'm like, oh, the ship's still here. I was focusing on other things, but things are still running. No, I get it. I relate to it so much because like it's. I don't think it's like a savior complex. I think it's just we do want to give people the opportunities that we know we are very lucky and very blessed to have had, and we want to give it to people without kind of keeping in mind, like you said, like not everyone. It's not even that everyone deserves it. Not everyone wants it. That's the other
Not
thing.
everyone wants it.
Um, is like we can give it to people, but if they don't want it, we're just kind of throwing time, effort, love to people who didn't even want it in the first place. We just kind of sadly, and this is for me mostly, I'm not sure if you can relate, I project it to other people that they kind of need it even when they don't.
Yeah,
um
guilty as charged. Yeah.
yeah, so this is a little bit of our own entrepreneur therapy that we're kind of going through, kind of realizing and backtracking. So with that, then, with everything that you've kind of gone through, everything that you will also go through, like into the next venture of like the thing that we're creating together, into the the world of AI, the world of marketing, the world of where everything is shifting towards. If um if you had a second brain, like if you had a second Chris, a third, an army of Chris's, what value are you wanting to create for the world? And what would that look like for you? Like, what would be, if you had Chris's who wanted it and actually are taking action on it, what would you like the world to look like?
That would be so chaotic. My God.
I know. Imagining it, as I was saying that, I was like, that's so chaotic, but probably very fun.
Yeah, that is so chaotic, and we actually I can we can actually relate that in D&D. Um,
Mm,
in D&D, usually what happens is there's a big bad. You either fight the dude or you don't,
mm,
or if you do win, sometimes the aftermath of wherever they are takes into effect, right? What if
mm,
you had to slay a king? Or what if you were slaying a devil that was keeping a town together afloat, right? So I was one of the players that would say, okay, now that we won, we
mm.
need to make things more sustainable, right?
Yeah.
So, creative, I would probably send all those people out there to different, I probably use UN SDGs as a United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as
Yep.
the
Perfect.
what's the word I'm looking for, as the anchor for
Mm-hmm.
what they should do, and they would probably create social enterprises or incubate social enterprise startups and help scale them using what's the word I'm looking for? Digital marketing, AI, digitization, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But sustainable digitization, right? Not the reckless kind,
Just
basically.
kind of plowing through kind of work. I understand that, and I get that, and I like that you used D&D as a good um picture painter for those who've played D&D before, because it is that, like, after you save things, you still have to make sure that it doesn't happen to them again,
Yeah,
or that it doesn't get worse afterwards. That's kind of the thought behind it, and I like that picture. So then, and I like asking this question of, like, the Steve versus Iron Man, Captain America versus Iron Man, of, like, take away the suit, take away everything else about that's out of you, Chris. Who are you? Like, who's like the what's your superpower? Or, like I said, taking it all away, everything else that you're building, everything else, what would it who is that Chris, basically?
that's actually a funny question because I've been thinking about that lately.
Mm,
Long story short, 2 months ago or 3 months ago, we downsized.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, and imagine that downsizing means an extra half a million pesos expense per month or more. And where the
Yep.
heck am I gonna get that money? And then where the heck am I gonna get the money to what's the word I'm looking for? Pay people, right? Um, and there's even a threat. Okay, if this does push through and the worst does happen, I will have nothing left uh, but the accumulated experience, right? So it's not going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my answer to that would be, um, I would still probably be I would probably still be the digitization guy. I would still probably be the guy who will push for what's the word I'm looking for? Push for funnels, digital marketing. But more than that, I would actually still be the guy um, who is trained the most when it comes to personal development with people. Right. So
Yeah.
I actually spent like probably more than 2 million pesos
On just, yeah.
just to learn how to teach people and how to train. Right. So there's and in fact, I was like, huh, it's almost impossible to be broke. So
Yep.
yeah, it's almost impossible to be broke. I could probably be anything in the world except broke, right? So,
I
which
like
is fun.
that. Which is It's interesting because it's scary, 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 and then you get to the point where it kind of clicks in your head of, like, oh, if I'm broke, I'm dead, kind of thought of, like, because of the experiences, because of the crap that we had to go through, basically being starting out so young. Like, you get to the point where it's not. I don't think it's confidence. I think it's just like you just know it. You just know that,
Oh,
um, if everything, knock on wood, knock on every single piece of wood that I have on here. Things do go awry, things do go wrong, things do explode, basically. You still have the skills, you still have, like, if I can imagine that if the internet goes out, who know, that was a fear for the solar flares at one point. If
actually,
the internet goes out, yeah, we still know how to market, we still know how to do sales, we still know how to start a business, what it's like that doesn't just go away. Like, if even if, like, AI doesn't happen, like, oh, AI just got turned off, turned itself off, we would still find other ways to keep finding. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, which is a lot of the people who are listening to this podcast, or watching the podcast, are, um is you do get to that point. I'm not sure if it was the 10 years of experience, doing business, or even just two. um but you do have to go through a little bit of trauma to get there.
yeah,
So right now, Chris, tell us more about what you're currently working on, what you want people to know, where they can find you, all that good stuff.
yeah. Well, before we go
Hmm?
to that, I just want to say with trauma, like, I mean, even if you do have to start over, right? Being hungry is something we've experienced, right?
Yeah.
Being broke is something we've done and we've survived that. Being alone, being someone who knows nothing but still having a
Mm-hmm.
business, right? So that's something we still know. Now, as for the stuff we're working on, so we've tackled it before. So right now we've talked about it with the cohort. So right now we have two major projects that we're working on. So um, The goal is, or the problem that we're trying to solve is, um, so sometimes you have to aim or predict where we're going, right, and what's gonna happen by then.
Mm.
So for me, my prediction is, in a couple of years, maybe 5 to 10 years from now, the Philippines is not gonna be Filipino friendly. Okay? And a lot of people are relying on the BPO boom that's happening in the Philippines. And what they're not expecting is that, oh, hey, um, this, especially in Iloilo, man, there a lot of investment has come into the city,
Yeah.
um, BPO related, inbound, outbound projects. Some nurses don't even work in the hospitals anymore because there are nursing niches. But my
Mm.
biggest fear is
Mm.
that when AI takes over, and the only thing that's holding AI back right now, and right now AI can definitely do this. The only thing that's holding back AI now is laws, right? Laws wherein it's still illegal to use machines that pretend to be people to interact with people, right?
Mhm.
So when that happens, is what's going to happen to the industries in the Philippines? What's going to happen to the boom? What's going to happen to all these people who are so used to um, one industry, and what if they can't adapt? Okay.
Yeah.
The second problem is what's going to happen to Filipinos who get pushed out, right? Gentrification, basically. They get pushed out because all of the good stuff is owned by either a foreigner or already rich, or maybe
Yeah.
China, right? So we're creating a movement under CV where we're teaching other people to start their own digital agencies. And we're also creating a movement where we're teaching people how to start online careers, and we're
Mm.
inviting trainers who are skilled in different industries. Leanne is one of them, right? I really want to invite you guys to start the first cohort with her, um, and we'll see what happens, right? So the goal is two fronts, right? Build up skill here, and then create infrastructure here. So
Mhm.
until it goes full circle, basically.
I love that. It's then it's kind of like for both of us, like when we started our businesses, we wanted to help people. I'm like, okay, how do we help people? Like, oh, we can like create jobs and careers for them. It's kind of both sides of it, of like we want to train people to be entrepreneurs, so those entrepreneurs hire the people that we can't hire, because we've now sadly gotten disillusioned of like the 1,000 employee dream.
Yeah.
But
I
then
don't want
it
to hire
doesn't.
people
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
No, I relate so much to that burnout, but it's life. So for everyone else, if you guys depending on when you're able to hear this, I'll put all of the links for Civi, for maybe you can catch the next cohort, depending on when you're listening to this. And of course, you can find Chris everywhere else, as well, on the links below. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time today. I've learned. I was saying before this, I'm like, I'm curious to see if there's something about you I did not know, and I did. So that was the point for this podcast for me. And also thank you for always being very transparent and very vulnerable when it comes to talking about entrepreneurship and all its craziness, basically all its up and down. So thank you so much for being on the Scale You podcast.
No, it's my honor. Thank you for the invite. Yeah.
Now, I hope you guys had fun listening to me and Chris talk about life, entrepreneurship, and everything else in between. It was really funny the way that a lot of the parallels went back and forth. So I hope you guys learned a lot from there. And of course, if you guys like this podcast, if you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button right there. If you're watching anywhere else, of course, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future episodes here on the Scale You podcast. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and remember that small steps matters. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.